Imagine getting up every day full of energy as if you were in your 20s again. What would that be like? What would it be worth to you? What is your health worth to you? Think about it. Your health isn't everything, but without it, everything else is nothing. And yet, too many of us are taking it for granted until something goes wrong. And no one wakes up hoping to be diagnosed with a disease or chronic illness. And yet, we've never been taught how to be proactive in our health through our school or public health. As a registered health coach and integrative health practitioner, I believe it's time this information is made available to everyone. Combining new knowledge around your health and the ability to do my functional medicine lab tests in the comfort of your own home will allow you to optimize your health for today and all your tomorrows. Don't wait for your wake-up call.
Welcome back to another episode of the Don't Wait for Your Wake-Up Call podcast. I am Melissa Deely, your host, and I am here with Carmen Pineda-Selva. Welcome to the show, Carmen.
Thank you. You did a fantastic job.
Thank you. I'm excited to have you here and have this discussion today because it's perhaps a discussion that we just need to bring out into openness and bring more awareness to. And before we do that, I'm just going to introduce you, though, to the audience. Carmen is a finalist for the 2025 Alberta Artist in Residence Award and a 5-time Governor General nominated multimedia filmmaker and artist. Woohoo! Congratulations. She is a passionate creator dedicated to preserving rural Alberta's history through legacy films. And beyond her artistic work, Carmen has been recognized for her contributions to community, receiving the 2021 Alberta Northern Lights Volunteer Award. Carmen has also made her mark by launching Canada's first community online TV channel, as well as the SODA, Speaking Out for Disabled Actively channel, both of which promote equal opportunities for individuals with disabilities, something close to her heart as she navigates life with MS. Despite her accomplishments, Carmen's journey hasn't been smooth, not due to a lack of success, rather because of the overwhelming challenges she faced as a victim of the corrupt family court system. Her story is a blend of resilience, art, and a deep commitment to advocating for those who often go unheard, and for bringing these topics out into the open that help other people navigate more easily. So thank you for being willing to share. Thank you for being willing to be vulnerable here. And I just want to ask you to go back a little bit and give us some of the backstory of what has brought you to this place today where you are wanting to share and help others.
Ooh, great question. I don't know. I'm kind of crazy. No, I've always been an advocate for other people, and I don't know why it's so challenging to be an advocate for yourself sometimes, but it's kind of gotten to that point where, I think it does need to be said, and that goes like with the core system, like how you said. So I've been in a very horrible state of parental alienation. And so I don't know if you know what parental alienation is or what the audience knows, but it's basically where one parent manipulates a child into to fear, reject, or avoid the other parent. And they do that without any legitimate reasons. So for myself, I have 2 daughters, and they completely rejected me. So why I wanted to kind of bring this to is because when it started to happen, I mean, it's one of the lowest things that you could possibly go through is having your children basically taken away from you. It's a tactic that they used in World War. The Nazis used it because you could pretty well get somebody to do anything when you hold their child in front of you, right? You're at the mercy of your children, and parents will do anything for them. So you can't help but fall into this victimized state, this constant abuse. And so for me, when I started to get into it, a lot of people were like, oh, self-care, self-care, self-care. And I'm like, that's great. I've taken showers. I don't think I smell. What is self-care? Like, as far as like if showers and bath bombs and lighting candles is it, I'm like self-care up to here. Like, what else do I do? But I didn't realize what self-care was, right? Like
Yeah, it's a
people say it all
term that
the
is
time.
it's a term that's thrown about with the assumption that people understand what it is.
Mhm.
And part of it is that it's actually different for every single individual as well. And it goes much deeper than the showers and the bath bombs and the candles and time to yourself.
Yeah, but that's kind of what I alluded it to, right? Or like
Right.
correlated it, that
Yes.
it would just be, taking care of yourself and, showing that you're not substance abuse and you're not, in your pajamas all day. Well, I still feel that way. I still want to be that way, but at least I look a little bit more presentable, so I'm good, right? No. So for me, it was more about education. That's what I learned was my version of self-care was education, learning more about the situation, learning more about what I can do, the power that I had, and what I was going through, and understanding why somebody does certain things, because a lot of times you don't understand, right? And until
Mhm.
you learn, you don't know.
Right.
So,
We only
yeah,
know what we know. And
yeah.
so for you, the self-care was the education that led to empowering yourself.
Mhm. But because I'm a story person, I'll tell you stories. I promise they'll have an ending or they'll get to one at
Beautiful.
some point.
We love stories.
Well, my story is yeah, so I was about 3 years into this post separation, and a lot of people call it co-parenting. It's not co-parenting. And some people call it high conflict co-parenting. It's not. It is post separation abuse because the individual, the other parent, they continue to assert control and try to abuse you. They just do it through your children because they know that that's the only way. It's the only thing that you care about. You're like, you can have the house, you can have whatever you want. Just let me see the kids. Well, now they know. They know what you want. So I was about 3.5 years, 3 years into it, and just dealing with all the drama, all the legal fees, all the trying to credit my name, right? Because they can accuse and say anything they want in the court system, and a poor judge is sitting there going, I don't know. I don't know any of you. I get 20 minutes with you. It's costing, 10 grand to at least get in the court system to see a judge for 20 minutes. You're paying legal fees. You're paying, it's so much repeatedly. And I got to a point 3 years ago, or yeah, 3 years ago, where my lawyers kind of said, okay, you've been really good, you've been really patient, and we've documented how many times he's gone against the court orders, how many times he's not let you see the kids. Like the first year of my separation, I saw my kids for under 24 hours. And it was just passing by, like, can I see them? Can I, it was horrible. So after years of battling and being completely broke and having to live with my parents and just having individuals that you never thought that would go against you believe all these like narratives of you. um, yeah, my lawyer basically said, well, you're at a crossroads, so you can either continue and it will probably cost you another 100,000, and when a lawyer quotes you like 100, it's probably 150 easy. So to continue with this, because you need psychological evaluations, because he's saying that you're insane or unfit. So now you need psychological evaluations so that the judge can look at it to go, oh no, she's actually okay, right? Or not these, has a job, or here's these ideas, or whatever, whatever you need to debunk the theories or the allegations. So it's going to cost you that. But then here's the problem is that he's gone against court orders so many times. A judge doesn't like that. They might end up putting him in jail for like 24 hours, 78 hours, whatever they feel, because he's gone against it X amount of times. It's a little slap on the wrist. Now you're the bad guy who's put dad in jail, and you might end up with the kids, but they have this false narrative view that you're dangerous, that you're abusive, that you don't like them, that you favor one child over another. I mean, a small little smidget to give you an idea of this is that my children were actually told that I was a prostitute and that I had whore germs. So they were scared to eat food that came into contact with me, anything that I gave them. They were, you know, it's like cooties for adults, whatever. but, but I mean, those are like the allegations, right? So, yeah, I was kind of at that crossroads where I had to decide what I want to do. Do I continue to fight or do I find peace with this? And how do you find peace when you don't have your kids? You know, that was kind of the crossroads. So what ended up happening is I was asked to go on a Travel Alberta new tour that they were doing. It was an itinerary. And it was all about these history museums. And because I had just finished producing a television show that was called The History Wrangler Show, and it was all history related, they invited the host and myself to go on this tour. So great, wonderful. I could use a break because I'm dealing with all this. Everybody needs a break. Everybody should go on vacation at some point. It's going to get paid for. Wonderful. So I show up for the first day of this tour and I realize, oh, this isn't a history tour. This is a biker tour. And I had never been on a bike in my life, and there were a whole bunch of people in leather. And it was like lots of bikes, lots of loud engines, and what did I get myself into? So Cole's notes, when in Rome, get on the back of a bike. And that was where I met JD, which you know from Freedom Biker Tours, where he did a podcast that was all about the throttle therapy, therapeutic aspects of motorcycling. So that's me now. So, anyways, I got on the back of his bike and I haven't gotten off. That was actually the start to my Alberta Artisan Residence application because as I got on the back of that bike, I always say that I felt like I was living in black and white. And when I got on the back of the bike, it's like it woke me up. And all of a sudden, I saw everything in color because I had been stuck in this, survival stage in so long where it's either that fight, flight, whatever, you're constantly going, what is he going to accuse me of next? What am I going to have to do? When am I going to see the kids? Constant, right? So you just kind of get into this monotone, like survival. And when I got on the back of that bike, it woke me up and I forgot that life was supposed to be about fun. That was the first thing that I went, yes, I'm doing myself a disservice to my kids because I'm allowing him to turn me into this like Gollum character from Lord of the Rings, just like this crepid, like my precious kid, like nobody wants to be with Gollum. Like
Right.
stop that. Remember that life is about fun and adventure and that you owe it to your kids to live again, to turn your life around, to become something and someone that they want to hang out with, first of all, right? No one wants to hang out with Gollum.
Absolutely. Right.
Yeah. So that was kind of like the start of it, right? I got on that bike and it was also being that awareness of the sights and the sounds and the smells, like how you can feel the mist of a waterfall before you get to it. So it kind of shook me up, which a lot of people say is one of the first things, right? Take a walk, go back to nature, blah, blah, blah. And a lot of times people say things and you're like, yeah, that sounds great. What does that mean? Right? Just like self-care. What does that mean? Well, it was all the sights, all the smells. Everything is like super hyper, intense because you kind of forget about it too. Like when I was in that survival stage, I forgot about smells. I forgot like how good food can taste. I forgot how good trees can smell and how it smells different, like within kilometers from each other, right? So when I went to sleep, I slept like a baby because of all the fresh air, everything. So for me, I'm 100% all about that. Go find that one thing that makes you feel alive again. Because especially in my situation, I was just completely stuck. So that's kind of like the story. And then now I'm, doing a documentary on throttle therapy and the therapeutic aspects. I'm on a couple of different podcasts. I speak to a few individuals about parental alienation. I'm actually meeting a woman tomorrow to have coffee with her to discuss her alienation and what she's going through, because a lot of times people feel completely alone. And in my support group, we've had 3 people in my support group alone that have actually committed suicide. All male, actually. So it's a heavy topic.
It's a heavy topic, and as we said at the beginning, an important topic to bring out into the open so more people can be aware that they're not alone and to know that there are support groups and to be able to tap into the resources and find what brings them joy back into their life, find what brings the color back. And you told that story beautifully, and I can totally understand when you're in that fight or flight state and you're just in survival mode and you're feeling completely stuck, that, yeah, life is black and white, right? And then to be able to find a way to have your life burst full of color again, whether it's throttle therapy or something else for you. You do
It was
what to your kids.
I was videotaping a groundbreaking ceremony for a native healing garden, and one of the indigenous elders, he came up to me and he said, you're going through a lot of stuff. And, I was like, yeah, everybody says that and everybody's going through everything. And he's like, no, you're going through a lot. And I'll tell you, people say all the time, I would die for my kids. Like that's some term of endearment, like something, to be proud of. I'd die for my kids. He's like, but dying takes nothing. And then what? You're gone. They have no resource. They have maybe like the guilt of you. They have nothing. Whatever crappy resource you were, it's gone. He was like, what you should say is, I would live for my kids. And I remember he said that, and I was like, well, that's the one I want. I want the living one, but I still don't know how to do that. And then it was 3 months later that I got on the bike and I went, oh, I get it.
I know. Yeah.
I get it. Well, and self-care seems selfish for so many.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. So it's hard to kind of start it.
Part of the programming. I'm always talking about the programming of, those first 7 to 9 years of life when it's just download all the programming of how we are supposed to live our life, based on our parents, our other adults in our life at childcare, preschool, school, etc., etc. And so I definitely grew up with that belief. And it wasn't until I got into health coaching school where I first heard self-care is the most selfless act. And I went, wait, what? Say that again. I said it again. And then I made my own mantra around it.
It's funny because you say like the first 7 years, and I absolutely believe that. But we have a completely different, like, here, I'll tell you a different point of view to that, to what you just said. And for me, because of my situation, I take so much comfort in knowing that I had those first I had the first 10 years with my kids. So, and I think about how that is so crucial for them in shaping who they are. Exactly. So I take so much comfort in knowing that I know that I have downloaded so much good stuff in them. Yes. So even though they are being brainwashed and taken and turned into this cult-like environment where it's a completely re-indoctrination of a mindset, I take so much comfort in knowing that I had that and I've programmed that. So it's interesting because now when I guess you're an adult, you have to start going, which one do I believe and which one do I don't? And, I'll take this and I'll take that. It's like shopping trip for the universe.
Exactly. And what runs is what runs the deepest. And those first 10 years, the 7 to 9 years, that programming, it's outside their conscious awareness. It's unconscious,
Mm.
However, it is all that goodness you've programmed in is how they will run their adult life.
Mm. Mm.
And so I'm so glad that you had that so that they have the benefit of that. And at some point in adulthood, this will turn around, right? When they get to a place where they actually can choose for themselves
Mhm.
and be able to take action for themselves. And coming back to self-care, my mantra that I created for me around this and bringing self-care into my life after I first learned it was selfless.
Yeah.
Who knew
I don't.
that self-care is the most selfless act because it allows you to show up and give the world the best of you instead
Mhm.
of what's left of you.
Yeah. Oh, I've heard you say that before. I love that.
And it's
Yeah.
really what helped me step into a
Uh-huh.
daily practice of what self-care meant to me and what was important for me.
That was something that was so good to hear and to learn, right? That it's knowing that, like, I always say it's like, okay, I need to build a new foundation. It's like I was kicked out of the house and I'm homeless and I have nowhere to go. Okay, I need to start, and I need to start with that foundation, because that is the root. But it's that foundation that's all that 7 years, and then as you build your house, you're like, okay, well. I want to build a comforting environment so that in my situation, I kind of say, well, it's like if my kids are walking around and, I'm like, hey, I have this really nice house and, it's really cozy and I'm making some good food and it's all decorated and I'll leave the door open. Come and check it out. Stay if you want, take some food, use the washroom if you need it. It's all cool. Don't trash the place though. Don't trash it, right? Because it's my house. I'm building it. You can come, but you're not allowed to trash it. Nobody's allowed to. So, and that's kind of part of self-care too, right? That you have to learn is those boundaries, setting up boundaries. I hate
Absolutely.
boundaries, obviously. That's how you get into this place is because you didn't have boundaries set up probably to begin with. So,
And yes, boundaries are so important. And many women don't have boundaries set up. And again, that's the programming. We weren't taught that we needed to have them set up, right?
mm,
And something that I teach is how we can set boundaries in a really neutral way, which that too is new for many people. They think that, boundaries are heated conversations or keeping people out. Boundaries are to keep you safe and a
that's a
place for
big part
you
of
to be
self-care.
able to grow, right? And
Mhm.
so, really important for people to be able to understand that and step into setting boundaries that do keep them safe and allow them to grow and be able to do it with the emotional charge removed.
I find it's creating those boundaries, but it's knowing your role, like the part that you played in the situation that you're in. That's me going, yes, I didn't have good boundaries or I didn't set them up or, that I got myself into this situation. But it's understanding too that so much stuff kind of in my situation anyways, that it happened over time. It was slow progression. And
Yes.
that's kind of like that brainwashing, right? Or mental
Mm-hmm.
abuse.
Mm-hmm.
I always went, well, he never hit me. He never abused me. I don't have physical scars, but I do have them up here, or I allowed these different thoughts that maybe I didn't necessarily agree with, but I would just go along with because of that, right? So it's understanding that role that you do play. Mhm.
Absolutely. And we often don't see it until we're out of it, right? Because it's happening again outside of our awareness. It's very
Uh,
manipulative. And as you said, it's very, it creeps up slowly, just like we don't see our children growing unless you haven't seen them in a while. We don't
mhm.
see the impact of this until we look.
They always say the mind can lie to you, the heart can lie to you, but your body does not lie. And it's so true how like something can catch up to you, and it's only until you are so sick or tired or
Mhm.
you can't ignore it anymore because it's your body's breaking down, that you realize, yeah, there is a problem, there is something going on, or I can't ignore this anymore.
Exactly. And by the time the symptoms show up in the physical body, they've already moved through the spiritual, the mental, and the emotional body. And then we have the symptoms in the physical body. And so the healing journey is to address the symptoms in the physical body And we don't stop there. We then address them in the emotional body, the mental body, the spiritual body, and that's how we get people back to full health. So I want to shift this conversation a little bit, Carmen, because you've got some really incredible stats. And again, as we open up this conversation, I want people to be aware of the fact that this didn't just happen to you. It didn't just happen to the lady that you're meeting with tomorrow. It didn't just happen to the 3 men in your support group. I would love for you to share how big of a problem this is. Again, so people can put this in perspective and they can start to notice it as well. Because perhaps, grandparents might then see this happening through their grandchildren, and maybe there's a way that they can get involved, support. Maybe friends see this happening to their friends, etc. And it's outside of our awareness when we're the victim. However, if others can help bring it to awareness, perhaps it helps catch it earlier, stop it earlier. I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm definitely not the expert here at all. However, I know just talking about these stats helps people realize this is a big issue.
Yeah, well, I sent you the stats. I can't memorize them, so I apologize.
Well, I will share them, happily share them.
They're huge. But to what you said, though, you talked about grandparents, and I'll tell you that my parents have been alienated from my children as well, and they've been told horrible stories as well. Like my dad's a former, retired pediatrician, and he was the children were given the narrative that he was like an evil, dangerous man. I'm like, he's a 5 foot, 2, just like me. I'm 5 foot nothing, 5'2", little guy, ex-pediatrician. How could he be rude? How can he be mean? How could he be dangerous? Like, honestly, but it's like what you said, it's those slow drips. So I always kind of describe it as it's a death by 1,000 paper cuts, because each one is something very subtle that you just can easily brush off over time. It's kind of like if you throw a bucket of water on a rock, it doesn't do much. It cleans it, whatever, no big deal. But if you slow drip 1 drop at a time, it can shape that rock. And that's exactly what this type of relationship does to you. And it's that type of narrative that's kind of constant in there. So, I mean, you can share some stats if you want, because I kind of gave them to you, but I don't know them all. I'm not a numbers.
Yeah, I would like to share the stats. And when I talk about, grandparents or friends getting involved, obviously every situation is different. And,
yeah, 100%. But actually,
I suspected your parents have been alienated. However, can his parents get involved and see what's happening? Right?
His
whole different scenario. They raised him.
Yeah.
However, outside, are there people that can see what's happening and help support the person going through it? However, let's dive into some stats here, because this is big. So a form of parental alienation is present in about 15% of divorce cases. 3.9 million children are moderately to severely alienated each year. Over 22 million adults in the US have been targeted, with an estimated 10 million having suicide attempts. Approximately 54% of targeted parents have experienced suicide ideation, and 24% attempted suicide, resulting in a stat of 5 men and 10 women dying by suicide every 11 days.
Yeah, it's insane. It's insane. I think it's something that people brush off a lot, because you go, oh, well, people fighting, it's no big deal, right? And you kind of think that there's going to be a little bit of animosity and a little bit of, well, that guy is bad, or this girl is crazy, or, and I think that's how that narrative can start at the beginning. And that's where again, it's kind of like that paper cut where, oh, okay, it's not really a big deal, but over time, there's a lot. And my case, it was hard because COVID happened during it too. So then COVID actually enabled my ex.
Yes.
Yeah, because now I'm physically alienated. The government is telling me I can't be with you because I might be contagious. Well, now, oh, is this contagious part of the contagious that he told us about before, where it's like the adult cooties and, what's going on, and I'm confused and I don't know. And, so you kind of use whatever you can to guide that messaging across. There are some really good resources that are out there. There's some really crappy ones. So some of the good resources that I found, because this is how it started, was that he would always call me a narcissist, and I was like, okay, I know that that's not a good thing, but I kind of sat down one day and researched what the actual term meant, because I was like, oh, I just know it's not good and it's basically not a good person. But I actually sat down and Googled it and researched it, and I kind of went, oh my goodness, if he thinks that I am this horrible person, like, why is he married to me? Was my first thought, right? And so I tried to look at myself and try to improve myself. And it was constantly like, well, you're the virus to this family. You're the problem. You're the reason why these things happen. So it was taking a good look at myself first, which then turned into, oh, well, maybe there's the whole, yeah, people say that they call other people a narcissist. It's usually them, and holding that mirror up to you and then denying all of that. You go through that phase too. But one of the great individuals online was Dr. Ramani, and she talks all about narcissism. And so I devoured, and that's where part of my self-care was learning about it. So I actually learned what a narcissist is. And I went, I don't think it's you are or you aren't. I would see it as like kind of like a video game, when you can like create your avatar and you go, oh, I want this person to be this tall or this short or this strong or, this kind or this narcissistic or this not, right? So I always say everybody has a little bit in them, but it's just how much. And some people, like Trump, are super narcissistic, right? Actually, that's something that I find that with the political situation, what's going on, I find it so triggering because there's a lot of the same narrative and tactics that are kind of used that parallel my situation, where I just go, I can't listen to this. It's re-triggering. Yeah. And that's another thing. You have to find out what triggers are too, because it keeps popping up. Because as you learn and try to improve yourself, there's something that's always going to happen. And then another resource, Ryan Thomas, he is a former child of parental alienation, and he does podcasting as well and has a YouTube channel. He's brilliant because he walks you through and describes it from a child's point of view, how it's kind of like the messaging that comes across. Like, for example, I know that when I get a visit with the girls, because I have court orders for visitations, and they aren't always followed, and actually they're never followed to the way it should be, but at least I get to see them. And it's about an hour drive for them to come to me and for me to come to them. And I know that for that hour-long drive, he has the ability to say, oh, I'm really sorry that we have to do this, especially on a Saturday, and I hope that she's in a good mood for you guys today, or I hope she's not going to try to do crazy, or I hope that, it's not going to be very stressful for you. And, so it's setting them up. So it's kind of like that narrative, right? So he's brilliant because he walks you through a lot of these tactics and allows you some resources to counter that, right? Like some of the ideas of drip love, where even though I don't have a lot of contact, the contact that I do have, I have to make sure that it's always positive, that it counters some of that narrative that's being said about me. So I have to make sure that I'm calm and cool and whatever. I'll give you lots of choices. Do you want the red cup or the blue cup? Because I know you don't get choices at home. So I'll give you as many choices as you want. And it's interesting because now I see it in my children too, as they're getting older, that they have so much trouble making decisions. Where I'll say, well, do you want to get a drink now, or do you want to walk around the mall and then get a drink? And they'll just go back and forth. Well, I could have a drink now, and there's this benefit and this benefit and this benefit, or I could wait, and maybe there's this and I see it in them because I go, that's how I was. I had such a hard time making decision because every choice has consequences to it. So it's hard. So those were some really good resources. And there's another one that's out there that's called the Anti-Alienation Project. And it's also another former alienated child. And I think as a parent, it's so good to see it from the child's point of view, because I know I went through a stage, and I see it a lot of times in these alienation groups where parents are just, I want to give up because it's so hard, because it is, you have your children who are yelling at you, who are basically abusing you as well. And you think, what's the point? And I need to maintain my sanity, right? It's like it is that self-care, but it's kind of like, it's not a wrong self-care because you want to maintain yourself, but it is in the sense that you can't just give up on them. You have to understand that they are damaged and they are so abused. So them abusing you is just basically them parroting what the alienated parent is saying. So if you can do that self-care, and for me, it was that education to understand that they are just being parents. So it's not really them. So if I can break this and I can be that rock and that stability and that foundation and create that good home that's inviting and warm for them, then it's easier to see, and their walls break down because they revert back to those 7 years of goodness that I got in them.
Exactly.
It was 10. It was 10.
Even 10 years, exactly. And
Even better.
you're absolutely right. And again, we can't serve from an empty cup. And the serving that you're doing here for your children is so difficult. And which is why that self-care, to fill your cup first so that you can be able to serve them and know the bigger picture. And having that education is so important, because then you can understand their perspective and where it's coming from and why it's the way that it is, so that you can counter that to the best of your ability, so they can see you for the loving parent that you are. And over time, that will shine through. It isn't going to happen instantaneously.
I love that you said, too, the loving parent that you are instead of the loving parent that you were. So, I mean, that's something that's like that means a lot. And I think it would mean a lot to other parents, as far as like, if you see somebody going through it, understanding that they are still parents, because you feel like you're not, because your children are basically kidnapped, taken away. There was actually a moment where I had to literally call the RCMP to find out where my children were, because they didn't, I don't know. I had that was it striptease moment where we were watching a striptease movie. I had just read Demi Moore's book, and it was on TV, and I was like, I've never actually seen it, so let's watch it. And there's the one scene where she goes to pick up her child, and the house is completely empty. And I just started bawling, and poor JD was like, "What's wrong?" I'm like, "Oh, I had this happened to me. I actually walked into the house when I was allowed to go back to the house, and it was all empty. It was gone. I had to call the police and find out where they were. Because his lawyer wasn't contacting, he wasn't contacting. I had to literally call the RCMP. Like, I'm still a parent. I'm still part of this. He's removing me from doctors, from schools, but I'm still here." And it is, even though you can take that step back and figure out and do all the education, you're still a parent.
Yeah.
And that's a really huge thing that I sometimes forget, and that many, many people forget. Yeah. So I would say that's one big thing to help people out.
Know that you are still the parent, and no one can take that away from you except you.
True.
And it may not feel like it in the moment.
Yeah.
That is the reality of it.
It's kind of like the whole, nobody can make you feel inferior but yourself.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. which I found that usually it's like the simplest things are always like the most impactful. That's probably why there's like the simple stuff.
Exactly. Keep it
So,
simple. Keep it simple.
totally. Yeah.
So, Carmen, this has been an incredible conversation. As I said at the beginning, thank you for your willingness to come on and talk about this topic and be vulnerable and share your story in order to help others through their journey. Obviously, you're not alone with over 22 million adults, in the US having been targeted. I'll put those resources into the show notes for people to access as well. Thank you for sharing them. And I want to move to the section of the podcast where I ask every single guest this same question. And that is, what does "don't wait for your wake up call" mean to you?
Um, it's all about, okay, I say, and again, this is another story. So I hope we have 10 more minutes. But I always say, okay, you have two people in you, right? Everybody kind of talks about like that devil and the angel that are on your shoulder. But I think of it as fear and dreams. And I always think, which one are you going to feed? And that goes with just everything in life. That goes with like your kids. That goes with building that better life for yourself, which again is for your kids, but it's mostly about you. Which one are you going to feed? Because you have choices every day to do that. So are you going to feed fear and not make the calls or not ask? Because if you don't make the calls and you don't ask, the answer is always no, right? So take that chance. As far as like my situation, again, don't wait for your wake up call. Find the resources, do the education, look, better yourself. It's so easy to get stuck and be in that hole. Like I was crying so much at one point that I was throwing up, and I went, oh my goodness, I didn't know that you could do this. Like, this is crazy. This needs to stop. I can't do this all the time. So, it's so easy to get stuck in that fear, but realize that everybody has those two people. Which one are you going to feed?
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And I was in a workshop earlier, and my business partner always talks about the devil and the angel. And I love
Totally.
you. I love you converting that into fear and the dreams and which one are you going to feed? Because at the end of the day, we do still have a choice.
Mm-hmm. Which is so important to think about, right? Like that's one of those, like you do have options. You do have something, ooh, which is something too for other parents because you're constantly like in this, I'm damned if I do, I'm damned if I don't. Like when I started to get involved with JD, I mean, I was like, I really like you, but I can't be with a biker. Like I'm being accused of all these other things. Imagine if I'm like now dating some biker, I'm going to be accused of being in like Hell's Angels or a biker gang or blah, 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 blah. And he actually was the one who was like, okay, I hear you. You think if you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. But don't you realize that there is an incredible freedom that comes in that situation? And I was like, no, there isn't. I'm in trouble either way. There's no freedom. And he went, no, there is freedom. He said, because if it doesn't matter what you do, then you might as well do whatever you want because you're going to be in trouble anyways. Right? So just do what you want. And it was at that point that I went, oh my goodness, there is so much freedom. You're right. It's going to be wrong no matter what. So I'll just do what I want.
Do what brings the color into your life, right?
Right. Color.
Beautiful.
Color is a big line.
Love that. Well, thank you for sharing all of that, Carmen. Is there so much wisdom here, and I love that share. Is there any other last piece of wisdom you'd like to share with the audience, or was that the last piece?
One day I'm going to finish writing my book. My book is called The Divorcee's Guide to Spunk Bubbles and Other Such Atrocities, and it's a coloring book, and it's all about parental alienation and helping with parental alienation. So look out for that. It'll come out.
I love that you've done that as a coloring book, right? Because when we color and we focus on that, it again gets us out of our nervous system and just into a place of calm. It's another form of self-care. So that's beautiful. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. This has been a really powerful conversation. And I thank you for sharing. And I want to thank my audience for tuning in each and every week. And if you know someone that is going through this, please share this episode with them, because Carmen's story, the resources she shared, may be the very thing that they're in need of right now. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And appreciate you being here, Carmen.
Thank you, Robin.
Your unconscious mind is powerful. It's the other 90% of your mind. And yet, you're not even taught about it at school. What if you could access the other 90%? It would be like driving the highway in 6th gear instead of 1st gear. That's what you're doing when you only know the tools of the conscious mind, the 10%. You're going through life in 1st gear. Are you ready to ramp up and go through life in 6th gear? Learn the powerful tools of your unconscious mind, healing trauma, clearing anxiety in minutes rather than weeks, months, and years. Join our next Meet Your Unconscious Mind workshop so that you can start to learn the power that you already hold within and the tools to access it. Look for the link to register in the show notes.